ceremony, a flag ceremony by the Senior Girl Scout Troop 482 here to make up folks from Berea Community and Madison Southern. This time we're calling the Girl Scouts to do our flag and pledge.
Good afternoon. Color Guard advance. Color Guard hold. Color Guard, please present the colors. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard, retire colors. Color Guard, post the colors. Color Guard dismissed.
Yeah, this time we're going to call on Ms. Warren, who's the advisor for Troop 482. She's going to introduce these young ladies and she'll give them a round of applause for their finish.
Thank you. I'm very proud of these girls. They've been scouts for a long time. Stay up, girls, just a minute. As you can see from their vests, they earned a lot of awards. They've already completed the Girl Scout Bronze as juniors and the Girl Scout Silver as cadets, and will begin their Gold Award, which is the highest Girl Scout honor you can earn, next fall. And so we have from Madison Southern, Jaylene Jukowski and Kara Ridgway. And from Berea Community, Natalie Warren and Olivia Jacobs, and Tiger Williams, who is not able to be here. If you see them around town, they usually be doing something good. Thank you.
I want to thank the Girl Scout Troop for doing that. It's a pleasure to recite the pledge that we all, most of us often don't get to do that. So, I suppose just staff and thank you so much. This time we're going to get our speaker up here. Before I do that, I'll give and recognize some distinguished and special guest with us this afternoon. It's going to be pointing out how well she is here at Berea College and I asked him to do my spline next tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We'll be on for 2 weeks. This is constantly traveling. We'll recognize Gerard, who is here. Thank you, Gerard, for being here. Lonnie Maker, thank you so much for being here. And Bruce Swan, thank you for being here today. We also have another special guest, Ms. Allison Grimes. You want to stand with her. She's running for Secretary of State, and she's doing this. I appreciate you making the time. Well, this time, this is our annual address from the mayor, and I'd like to ask Mayor Connelly, who's just re-elected to this position, to give us a few words of wisdom and insight on the community and how we're doing. Thank you. Welcome, Mayor Connelly.
Well, let me just get out of the way real quick. There are no props this year. I've had a number of questions about it. I've had such bad luck over the years. We have these huge fans that snuff my candles. My goal for next year is to learn PowerPoint. In the interim, I'll just have to give you the good words. Thank you for coming. And thank you for the invitation to speak about Berea. Kentucky law requires a mayor
periodically and at least once a year to report to the council and to the public on the condition and needs of city government. Your invitation, therefore, gives me an opportunity to, in part, fulfill that obligation. But before I launch into a description of the condition and the needs of city government, let me first take a few moments to thank our wonderful city workers. City government is about providing service, and our employees make that happen. I want to recognize the work of Tim Taylor and our Public Works Department, who met many challenges in 2010, from floods to snow removal, potholes to leaf pickup, and who also found time to construct over 4,000 feet of new curbs on Chestnut Street, install the new culvert at Baldwin Street, and achieve 100% CDL and CPR compliance. And Maggie Kriegel and the park staff, who did a great job in 2010 expanding our park programming from Toddler Tuesdays to ballroom dancing, and utilizing the new park expansion. And we all owe special thanks to our police and fire departments and their new chiefs, David Gregory and Roy Curtis, who led their departments in protecting our lives and property in the face of personal risk each day. In 2010, our police department was again nationally certified and continued to emphasize community policing while responding to over 16,000 calls for service. And our fire department, which continued its high level of training while making 947 runs, and also lowering Berea's ISO insurance rating from 4 to the 3 in the city area, and from a 9 to an 8B in the county, and that translates into potentially lower casualty insurance rates for residents. And Dale Van Winkle and the codes and planning staff, who also achieved success in the ISO rating by lowering the code inspection rating from a 99 to a 4, which, in addition to allowing for decreases in insurance, allowed residents to qualify for discounts in flood insurance, which is becoming more and more important. And Paul Schrader and the GIS staff, who capped another productive year working on various city projects by providing invaluable assistance and also in explaining the FEMA map changes and gathering and organizing damage data from the 2010 flooding events to qualify homeowners for grants. And Tom McKay and the Business Development Department, of which Tom is it, for helping to recruit 20 new businesses to Berea and generating approximately 240 jobs, and most recently assisting Tractor Supply move its development plan to approval. And Susan Meeks, our new senior accountant, hired only a few months ago before our auditors arrived, and the finance department staff, who together worked so diligently to keep our accounting in compliance and provide sound guidance in cash management. And Bell Jackson in tourism for its aggressive advertising campaign that kept visitors shopping in Berea during the Great Recession and took full advantage of the World Equestrian Games. And to Donald Blackburn and the utility staff, the largest single city department, for completing construction of the long-anticipated water treatment plant expansion, as well as making timely electric, water, and sewer system maintenance and repairs. And last but not least, Randy Stone, our city administrator, for his intelligent leadership, without which the city government would come to a standstill. But I also want to recognize the contributions of our city council for their hours of meeting, discussion, and decision-making, as well as the contributions of our community volunteers who have served on advisory and regulatory boards that have allowed the city's administration to function. These people are the ones that really make city government function, and they touch all of you. And when I talk about the condition of city government, it is at least the good part of it. The condition of Berea city government is good. And I base that statement on an examination of 4 specific criteria: finances, infrastructure, projects, and personnel. This past October, the city's auditor reported on Berea's finances and said that we had another clean audit. Now that's significant. It means we had good numbers and good compliance. And these numbers indicated that the general fund budget ended $1.1 million better than budgeted, and that the utility funds ended $500,000 better than budgeted. And in addition, the city received 111% of its budgeted revenues and was under budget in expenses by 13%. That translates into the standard for city financial management is to underestimate revenues, overestimate expenses so that you can make sure that you have a surplus and you operate within that margin. And we did that. Berea's total net assets increased by $3.4 million from $46.2 million to $49.5 million. The net cash generated from the operation of the utilities remained constant at about $3 million. And as of January 10th, the city had $4.4 million in reserve and $14.4 million cash in the bank. As for infrastructure, I mentioned some of the accomplishments of the street department: installed the new curbs and gutters on Chestnut Street, completed the Bluebird catch basin to drain standing water on Brushwood Court. A happy resident is glad to acknowledge. Erected shared road signs and bike racks to fulfill Berea's obligations under the Safe Routes to School grant obtained by the Madison County Health Department. And in part, the efforts that the city has made with bike racks and shared road signs and Berea, Richmond, and Madison County allowed Madison County and its 2 cities to be designated by the World Health Organization as a safe community, the only one in Kentucky and one of the few in the United States. In addition, for infrastructure, the utilities regrouped its part of the rest of the utility building and completed expansion of the water treatment plant, raising treatment capacity to 4 million gallons a day. It also made substantial progress on trimming trees back from the electrical wires and upgrading of transformers, especially in the Dixie Park and Roselawn neighborhood. And as for projects, the major general fund project completed in 2010 was the Recreation Park expansion with its skate park, soccer field, lighted soccer field, football practice field, basketball court, handicap accessible playground, and walking trails. And as for personnel, each department was authorized a 2% increase in payroll, and the city health insurance costs were limited to 7% after an initial quote of 17%. And actually, that wasn't as good as we had done in the past. We had 2 years ago, we actually had a decrease in our health insurance costs. The previous year was no increase. So the 7% raises our average, but it's still doing pretty good. These 4 criteria, I submit, show solid achievement for Berea coming out of this last Great Recession. The city government also has many needs or responsibilities. 2 are immediate. The first is awarding a garbage franchise. We will choose soon from among Monkey, Veolia, and Waste Connections, probably at a special meeting at the end of the month. The second is hiring a new utility director by April so that the new director can work with Donald Blackburn in transition until he leaves in July. Now, this hiring process of that significant department underscores the continuing need of city government to prepare for the retirement of up to 10 senior employees over the next 4 to 5 years. As each retires, this will be a major challenge for the city. This coming year, we will also need to review performance of the Travelers Insurance Company, hired last year as our casualty insurance carrier over Kentucky League of Cities. The city also has a number of projects that will demand attention in 2011. The Prospect Street Drainage and Road Improvement Project, which some of you may have come into contact with, is scheduled to be completed in August of 2011. The widening of Menless Road to the new Ferristown School and the installing of traffic control arms at the Railroad Street crossing in Maine, 2 high-priority projects for the city. The design for widening US 25 North to 5 lanes from the list to the bypass. Construction of the bypass itself from 25 to 21. Rita, Gerard, Bonnie, it's up to you. We've designed it. It's been appropriated. Creating a waterline loop at exit 76 for additional pressure and redundancy in service. Embarking upon the Terrell Branch and 1016 sewer line extension. Since we know that the second phase of the bypass is imminent, we need to get that sewer line laid. Renovating the train depot and replacing the Vote Center roof, both of which are underway. Constructing a bridge at the confluence of Silver Creek and Brushy Fork to extend the Indian Fork Shared Use Trail to Shoreline Pike and hopefully beyond. Implementing 2 energy grants, one to measure Berea's energy footprint and devise a plan to reduce it, and the other to install a small solar farm on part of the Berea Municipal roof, retrofit 5 city buildings with compact fluorescent lights and other appropriate lighting apparatus, and to begin an energy efficiency program through the utilities. Major attention will also be given to the needs identified by the ice storm in 2009 and the 2 floods in 2010, which left in their wake questions about the sufficiency of our drainage infrastructure and about the future development in flood hazard areas. In addition to the flooding that we had last year, the revised FEMA flood maps unveiled in 2010 identified more undeveloped land as well as many existing structures in the flood hazard areas. This expansion of that zone, along with our 2 floods, will prompt the city to evaluate the need for limitations on development in those flood-prone regions. In 2011, we will complete the evaluation of the Cherry Road and Shoreline Pike areas because of the flooding that they experienced. Continue to work on the exit 77 drainage basin options. Pursue mitigation opportunities through FEMA, and begin community meetings with neighborhoods in affected areas to evaluate possible solutions and allow them to participate in that process. And in addition, utilities will be working to trim more trees along the electric lines and upgrade transformers, hopefully leading to a 100% 7,200 volt system. Right now we have a dual system. So that we'll be more prepared for the next ice storm. In terms of budget and cash flow, these items will continue to be very important in 2011. And we will be, as a city, increasing our emphasis on economic development through the initiation of several programs. One, we're going to be holding a meeting for Chestnut Street property owners on February 10th to evaluate opportunities for that area. We are also, in 2011, going to have a preliminary run-through of a new workshop festival in July. Festival concept where you invite people in for a weekend to purchase goods. It would be up to a 2-week session with various artists, local and invited, where the attendees would be participating. They would actually be throwing pots or weaving chair bottoms, participating and learning. And it has the target of tapping into overnight stays. But the main economic development initiative will be, hopefully, a community discussion about economic development and how it should take place in Berea. The focus on economic development in 2011 was sparked both by the request of the Chamber for a convention center feasibility study, but also along with the fact that all of the candidates in this last election said that identifying job creation was a major need. That's a big undertaking. Much of the economic factors are out of our control. China has a fair amount to say about that. The national government has a little bit to say about that. But there are certain things that our city can do, and that will be our challenge and our opportunity. The best way for the city to help create jobs is through an appropriate economic development strategy. Now, Berea's current economic development strategy is recruitment, both of manufacturing plants and retail stores. Local leaders implemented this strategy after World War II with a focus on attracting manufacturing plants. Following early successes, Berea continued to emphasize recruitment as the cornerstone of its economic development, while adding a focus on retail companies like Kroger's and Lowe's. The strategy worked well until the world economy flattened out and U.S. manufacturing jobs began a steady 35-year decline, altering long-held economic realities. One example, according to the Lexington Herald, the number of manufacturing jobs has declined 32% since 2000. Over the last decade, 42,400 factories have closed in the United States. Berea felt this jolt when Parker Siegel moved to Mexico in 1999, Dresser moved to Brazil in 2003, and Churchill Weavers closed in 2007 after the collapse of the U.S. textile industry. The new reality is that the presence of manufacturing plants in a community no longer guarantees economic security. Berea's current strategy may be outdated. To compete in this altered global economy, Berea needs a more sophisticated economic development strategy. It can no longer focus so heavily on recruiting manufacturing plants or trying to compete with Lexington and Richmond for retail stores. Berea needs a multi-level strategy that builds on its strengths. That will be the challenge that we face in 2011. I have left with Greg Gerard a copy of the working papers that the council is reviewing in its attempt to study the issue of economic development strategies. And I ask you to reflect on it and to comment, and I hope that the Chamber and others of this group will join in that discussion. I expect that the council will be working this up and that we hope over 2011 to have a facilitated discussion of a broad section of our community leaders so that we can look at what opportunities and strengths Berea has, where the gaps may be, what strategies we can arrive at as a consensus, where we have divisions, whether that's over a convention center or whether that's over the concept of alcohol and restaurants, where we can come up with a coherent economic development strategy that will then be implemented by the community leaders who have worked together, looking at the short term and the long term. That's an optimistic agenda, but I think that the council is eager to promote that discussion, and it will only work if it is broadly attended and we get a consensus from our community. Plans don't do anything. It's the consensus that is built in the process. And so I leave that with the chamber, and I ask you to consider participating. I think that 2011 will be a challenging year, but one replete with opportunity. Do you have any questions?
We want to thank Steve for his annual presentation and we're working with the city on several fronts. There's certainly a lot to do. We have way more opportunity and more resources. Just a few things in the way of housekeeping. This time we want to recognize our caterer, which is Main Street Cafe and Summit Frederick's. You may have noticed at the table, I think, a little coupon there where you can register for drawing, and there's a place up there, I think, to drop those off, so we encourage you to do that before you away today. We also want to recognize Superintendent Gerard and our host today here at Berea Community School, their staff and faculty that have stand for you around the very proud of this facility and very proud of the same that serves. Obviously, a lot of things that we do for the chamber is become more and more community facility initiatives. Also, Steve has recognized some of the contributions that our city employees made over the last year. If you're a city employee, please stand and let's recognize you at this time. We'd like to call your attention to our leadership, Chamber Board of Directors. If you're a Chamber Board of Directors, please stand. Also want to recognize my assistant, Jill Hilton. She's been with us since back in August. Some of you are still meeting and trying to get to know her a little bit. So Jill, please stand. Over on the back of your program, we have a list of folks that have been kind of empowered there. There are leaders for various committees and things. We're likely to add some committees and things, but at this time, those folks would certainly appreciate your involvement if you volunteer to assist in some capacity. We seem to work with the same folks over and over and over, and we certainly like to get some new ideas and some fresh blood there. So those folks are all in sort of organizational mode right now. They'll be holding their first organizational meetings probably in the next 30 days, so now's a great time to join in if you're interested in economic development or banquets, parades, golf scrambles, Spoon Red Festival. We need lots of help for that, so we'll certainly look forward to being involved. Again, I want to thank you for coming out this afternoon, and we stand adjourned.